This is the Balanced Advisor Podcast with Dr. Travis Perry, helping financial advisors like you achieve balance in their lives.
All right, welcome everyone to another episode of the Balanced Advisor Podcast. I am joined by Kate Holmes, and she is the founder of Innovating Advice. She consults with financial service professionals globally. Her mission is to propel the global financial planning profession forward through her collaborative work, her podcast, and IA community for forward-thinking financial advisors. She's a CFP professional and also runs the Video Creation Masterclass for financial advisors. Welcome, Kate, to the show.
Thanks, Travis. It is awesome to be here.
Well, and we've collaborated a little bit in the past. So I know a little bit about you and what you're trying to help and move forward with the profession. So it's my pleasure to have you. Tell listeners here a little bit about you, maybe your story, how you got into the profession. Everybody likes those stories, like where'd you come from and what are you kind of all about?
Yeah, I hail from rainy Northwest, the Seattle area, but I actually went to university in Australia, got a degree in photography. So not quite the natural path into financial planning, but after I graduated, the government kicked me out. So I moved back to Seattle. My mother owned a small, successful RIA. And so she had me join as her retirement plan. And so I had this wonderful business that was going to be handed to me. And I worked very hard and over 8 years worked up to being a shareholder in the company. I saw every side of the business. And I think coming from that creative background, knowing everything we did, how much we charged clients, it was an AUM only business. We didn't do financial planning. I honestly it wasn't fulfilling enough. I didn't feel like I was making enough of a difference. So in early 2013, before there was a blueprint, before it existed, I started a completely virtual monthly retainer financial planning business because travel has always been my thing. I've never wanted to be in one place and I didn't want to be tied to a location. And that became fascinating. And I started speaking out on how financial planning, the greatness of it is that it really is deciding what you want in life first and then creating the plan to get there. And so I realized I needed to do that for myself and I needed to actually be that example. And so I built a business that worked around my life rather than squeezing my life around my business.
And this is why we're talking today. Because you get it. Like there's so many people that have a hard time in this industry with, they have this idea of flexibility, freedom, finances. Like those are the big 3 F's that I see the reasons why they get into the industry. Yet they struggle because as soon as they get in some portal, banking, brokerage, insurance, those are the big 3 areas that they find their way into the industry, that it's typically work nights, weekends, work till you die. And then you can maybe take some time off. But while you're helping your clients living these amazing lives, like you have to suffer because that's what you do. Like, I love the fact that you just said, no, I'm building a business that is around my personal life, not the other way around. Like it is about how I can be fulfilled through the things that I'm doing versus, what leftover time do I have for me? That's so crucial. Very cool. And everybody has a different story. You were the first that I've had that has been to Australia and been kicked out by the government. So note to self, that's fun. But that you had this window into the industry through your mom's practice. That's fantastic. What a wonderful way to get started and get your feet wet. So we're going to talk, a little bit more about what you do here later, but I always like to start off with this one question that I make everybody answer. And we talked about balance even on your show, but what is balance to you? If you had to define this to someone else to say, this is what I think balance is for me.
Yeah, and this is something I've been working a lot on over the last year and a half. And lately I've come to realize it was probably 7 months ago. I honestly don't know where I got this from. I'd love to attribute it to someone, but to me, it's doing a maximum of 3 things. And so I am dedicated to doing 3 things personally, and that comes first and foremost. And for me, that's making sure I eat well, I sleep well, and I exercise. And especially through the pandemic, if those were the only 3 things I did in a day, it was a success. If I didn't return any emails, that was fine. If I didn't send out a contract, that was fine. Those are the 3 most important things. And if any of those fall out of whack, I know I need to pause. And then with that, I only ever focus on 3 things from a business perspective. So I run the IA community. I've got the video creation masterclass, and then I love doing my podcast and all that, the connections that's created, including with you, Travis. But to me, it's that balance of making sure that I am healthy and capable of being the best me and feeling the best for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I really like that. As you know, when I talk about putting your priorities in order, having those top 3, it's crucial. So to me, you just hit a home run. I 100% agree. I don't have to always agree with everybody's definition, but I love that definition. Just doing those 3 things that are the most important. It keeps you focused, right? Does that really help you just to stay laser focused on what matters?
It does. And it's come from learning the lessons the hard way of, if I don't have those 3 things, then I'm not successful elsewhere. And you talk about that a lot in your book. And what you have a great line about, nothing outside of the home can compensate for failures in the home. And whether it's in the home or in your own personal body, working 100 hours a week and not exercising and not sleeping well, no amount of work can compensate for the damage that you're doing to your, mental, physical, and emotional health. And so it's got to just be those things above everything.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Thanks for the plug. Thank you for being such a good example of it too. I know you've spent some time working on this and really fine tuning what it is that makes sense for you and your own balance. And so maybe let's talk a little bit about why, you spent so much time. What was the catalyst? Why did you kind of go on this journey? Because I know why I'm on it, and my audience knows a little bit about that. But love to know, why did you want to get started to try to figure out balance? Were there some issues that you struggled with? You said, all right, that's it. I'm done. I'm going to figure this out. Normally it's some kind of event that happens to people that they say, okay, enough's enough. So let's hear from you.
Yeah, I learned I'm really, really good at running 100 miles an hour head first into a brick wall. And I can very easily fall into that workaholic mentality. And I've done it time again throughout my career. And I did it in my mom's business. And I would work every day and I would miss family events and I wasn't exercising. And I thought I was, super important, and that the business wouldn't grow without me working 7 days a week, and that, I was taking this over. And so I had to put everything I had into it. And, we just kind of get in our own heads until all of a sudden your body's like, I can't do this anymore. And whether it's gaining weight or it's not sleeping or it's just being irritable all the time, whatever it is. And that was a big catalyst also for me starting my own business, because I realized I was like, I'm not fulfilled. I'm not taking care of myself. And that was completely in my control. It's no outside pressure. It's a lot of us have that in our heads. And so that was my focus when I started my business. And I actually spent, I think it was 2014, my whole focus for 2014, that was my year of saying no, because I also have a bad history of saying yes to things and overcommitting, and we can't do everything well. It's just not possible. And that. And so 2014, I was like, nope, I'm going to say no to everything. And do you know how much fun that is? It gets kind of addicting. I'm just going to say no. And the fascinating thing is it actually tends to open up more doors. And you just get so laser focused on what you want. But then I got an amazing job. It was my dream job. I did wind down my financial planning business about 5 years ago. And I've spent the bulk of the last 5 years actually traveling all over the world and working with financial planners in 35 countries, just having an amazing time with amazing people. But again, when you're doing that, you're working, in every time zone, 7 days a week. And again, my body just kind of shut down completely. I spent like an entire month of July 2019. I thought I had mono or something. I was sleeping an average of 15 hours a day. I couldn't get out of bed. I was gaining weight like there was no tomorrow, even though I hadn't changed anything. And I could just tell my body was like, you can't keep doing this. And I was like, but I love it. I love traveling the world and these people. And I was like, you know what? I have to listen to my body. And so I had to leave, and I left with absolutely no plan for what was next other than I have to get healthy. That was all that mattered.
Yeah. So interesting. And I appreciate you sharing that story, because here you are, you're trying to search for, this better way, and you found it, but yet it was still too much. Like you were still going 100 miles an hour, just the other direction. It seems like,
yeah.
You're like, oh, I'm going to do everything. And isn't that amazing? Our bodies are incredible. They shut you down when they're trying to prevent you to do something that's really unhealthy. And it's like the sixth sense of knowing that, nope, okay, you're done. You're going to get sick, and you're going to be laying 3 days on the couch just thinking about life because you haven't, or whatever it is. But how frustrating that must have been, like trying to work, yet I got to sleep, for 15 hours a day. That is a lot of time to be sleeping. And then frustrating as you're trying to be healthy, yet, gaining weight for no reason. That is, what an odd feeling. And I know others deal with it, but to me, it just screams stress. Yep. Like your body was just, our bodies have this rhythm, and they know when too much stress is coming, and they, we get sick. A lot of students, I used to teach at university, they would get sick before finals, and mental health issues, anxiety, they would get depressed, they would get all sorts of things. I'm like, it's because you're adding too much stress right before all your finals. And I tried to give them a little bit of break when I was teaching at the university. I was teaching finance. And what I would do is I would have the final exam usually like a week before everybody else's final exam, and try to give them like this little bit of a break to be like, okay, it's coming and here it is, not to be a jerk to make it earlier, but so they could have some time to spread it out, so they weren't doing all of their finals in 1 week, because it's just like that cram. And then afterwards you have this elation, but at what cost? So it's kind of how I'm seeing it with what was going on with you, Kate. I love what you said about 2014 being a year of saying no. Like, I hope you documented that. Like that could be a book, like right there, say no, like a year of saying no, and like the adventures it brought you. But I also like the fact that when we say no, it's exactly what you mentioned. It says, we say yes to other opportunities that we probably didn't know were there. So I'm going to poke and prod a little bit. What were some other opportunities that came up because you said no? Like, what were some things that just naturally happened and opportunities to open that you didn't maybe expect?
Well, I honestly feel like it was just putting it out there in the universe. And I was actually talking with someone about this yesterday, and sharing about the 2014 year of saying no. And I do that a lot today. I recently actually just said no to what would have been a very lucrative consulting agreement, because I knew it wasn't going to fulfill me. And that's been my big focus coming into 2021 is I will only work with and do business with people that actually give me energy. There's so many things in life that suck our energy. And I was like, I just won't do that anymore. And so for me, saying no to a lot of things is actually saying yes to me. And it's saying yes to my health. And, we do, especially as financial planners, this is a giving profession. It's a service profession. And we so often feel like we have to say yes because people need help when we want to help them. But it can take so much away from us. And so it just got me hyper focused. And I feel like by putting that out there in the universe, and, there's a lot of things that I think people are good at. There's a lot of things that I'm good at that don't fulfill me. And so by getting so good at just saying no to things, then when these incredible opportunities came around, what's the phrase? If it's not this is a clean podcast. Okay. If it's not a heck yes, then it's a heck no, like that's what it has to be. And that's where I got really focused. And I genuinely feel like just that positive energy and being open to great things just brought stuff that I couldn't have imagined into my life.
Yeah, thanks for being clean. And yeah, I get it. Like when you say no to something, it really is saying yes to something more important.
Yeah.
But it too often, I think especially as financial advisors, we are used to giving of ourself for our clients, and I think that's a good thing because we're a helping profession, much like a therapist, much like, a counselor, or an attorney, whatever, like we're giving ourselves for our clients, yet there comes a point, like there's a boundary line, like where are our boundaries? Because once we say no or say yes too much to our clients, when are we saying yes to ourselves, to our health, to everything else, as we just, we're illustrating with your 100-mile-per-hour run. So, I 100% agree with this idea and talk about it a lot in the book. And I have a lot of clients who struggle with this. They really struggle with saying no. They say yes to being involved in like 3 or 4 different associations, being on, different clubs and volunteering for FPA and NAPFA and all the great organizations, by the way. But they do this, kind of begrudgingly, like, oh, we know we're supposed to do it. But it's really taking all of our time. And a lot of times, quite honestly, I'm counseling them to get out of those things if they're not ready for it, like times and seasons for everything, I believe. And so if you're trying to do it all at the same time and not focusing on, Kate's top 3, I do believe that you're going to struggle. I do believe that you're going to have a hard time. And I appreciate you bringing this up. So, that's something that's helped you to get on this path of finding better balance and being more fulfilled. And I love your energy. I love what you're doing for the community. And we're going to talk more about this in a second. But looking at advisors in general, you've worked with a lot of them. You touch base with literally probably hundreds of advisors. I know this about you, maybe thousands. But so as you see what advisors are dealing with, and really kind of the standard in the industry and the culture around this industry, whether it's coming in from insurance brokerage, banking, or straight up, a fee only financial advice. What do you think are the biggest issues with this culture in financial industry that are keeping advisors from being balanced? What do you think, if you could put a finger on it, like what's stopping them?
Well, Travis, you just said the one word I would use repeatedly, which is culture. I think that is still so much of it. And you mentioned it earlier. It's this mentality of work, 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 and then you can enjoy life later. And I struggle with that. I mean, my mom was a workaholic my entire childhood. And when we worked together, she'd be working 7 days a week and would always talk to me about what it took to build the business from scratch. And I met so many other advisors, and especially in the first few years of being in the profession, that were in there, I'll say within 5 years of retirement, and having these conversations about what do they like about the profession. And they built very successful businesses and made a ton of money. And so many of them told me they did not see their children grow up. And, they don't have a lot of memories and adventures. And I've always been a person that very much watches other people, and I'm an observer, and I like learning from other people's mistakes. And so I would look at that and go, I don't want to be that. And, I don't know if it's a generational thing. It's not necessarily, because to me, it's a mindset. When we think about next gen planners, it's very much the mindset of next gen, not an age thing. And so it's having, that commitment to yourself and realizing that we can actually work smarter, not harder. And that's something that there just isn't enough focus on, which is why I love operations. I love efficiencies. I love looking at what are the actual challenges, because so often we seem to create work. And that's one thing I've learned over the years. The more I work, the more work there is. You never catch up. Your to-do list never gets shorter. And so we've got to change that culture. And I know so many people that have even started businesses during the pandemic. They're doing incredibly well. And they are also focused on what I was. I'm going to build a business that fits around my life. It is possible. You can do it successfully. I don't think have enough examples out there reinforcing that that's possible.
Yes, mic drop. And it's well said. Like, I love your idea there. The more that we work, the more work there is. It seems like it sometimes. You get into the weeds of the details of things, and it's like, there's more ideas that come, right? Don't they? As a business owner, like, you're an idea person. This community that you've created that we'll talk about, like, that's your idea. The podcast, everything that you're doing comes because you probably had some great idea. Like, I'm going to do that. And what I find is that most advisors struggle with running the business. They're great advisors and they're great with their clients. They just aren't great with, basically, if there's a two-wheeled bike, they're great with that front wheel of being an advisor. It's that back wheel of running the systems behind, everything that goes with the business that we're not really trained for. I mean, if you think about a doctor, a dentist, chiropractor, even, they get into the medical profession to help people, and they don't take business classes normally. And they typically will hire an office manager or have a partner that does it. And yet financial advisors, we think, well, we know everything. We're going to get in here and do it right. And we tend not to want to partner up, to have a team. But I have seen a shift. I've seen a shift in the community, in the industry at large, of more of team focused. But it's typically these lifestyle types of RIA, planning firms that already get it. Does that make sense? It's not like the insurance industry has said, we've learned from you small RIAs, about better lifestyle. We're going to train our people. No, it's still like the old way. It's still the old school. And that's going to be there, I think, for a long time.
Well, and I think the other thing is we see, because there haven't been enough examples, I think, getting out there, so many people do start their own businesses. And I've talked with, hundreds of them. And I'm like, did you actually want to start your own business? Because it is hard. It is expensive. It is time consuming. Like, it's, not as glorious as social media makes it look. And so many that I've talked to, like, well, I didn't really want to, but I couldn't find a, firm to join that would actually give me the flexibility and where I could fit my business around my life and all this stuff. And I was like, hold on, like, hundreds of you are all saying the same thing. It's like, which means we're all out there. Why don't we actually come together and leverage people's expertise? Some people are going to be better in marketing. Some are better at analysis. Some are better at operations, and come together. And I do think I'd like to see a bit more of that going forward, just knowing firsthand how hard it is to run a business on your own.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a perfect segue to talk about your community and talk about, how you're helping advisors to learn from each other. Because I think you do that really well. You've attracted a great deal of advisors and people into your community to, I think, in my opinion, help them to have better balance in their practice. So I'll let you talk about it. Tell us a little bit more about what you're doing for advisors.
Yeah, thank you. So I spent a lot of 2020 and, a lot of bad stuff happened in the pandemic, but honestly, there were a ton of silver linings, and everything I'm doing now came out of the pandemic. And I'm so very thankful. And a lot of it was working with communities around the world. And that's where I have interesting expertise. Not a lot of people have worked with financial planners in 35 countries. And I've had so many of the same conversations around the world, whether I'm in the US or Russia, in Switzerland or Cape Town or Bangkok, it doesn't matter. And everyone really is kind of on parallel paths, and everyone wants to move the profession forward. And so I was like, okay, there's actually a lot of great stuff happening outside the US, but there's so much happening in the US. Everyone's like, oh, let's just focus on America. So I work with some really amazing financial planning communities around the world. And again, coming into 2021, I was like, I am committed to only working with amazing people that, energize me, because then I'm best able to help other people. So especially this group, Next Gen Planners in the UK, again, Next Gen as a mindset, not an age. I've kind of created a sister community in the US called the IA community, or Innovating Advice community. And I looked at a lot of communities, and you mentioned a few, and there are really great communities and associations in the US. But as a generality, you often have to fit in a bit of a box to join them. Either you're, on a certain fee side, or you have to be a business owner, or whatever it is. And in all honesty, it was coming into the presidential election and seeing all of this division, and then thinking about the profession and seeing all of this division. And I was like, can't we all, come together and learn from each other? And I was like, I want to find those people that have that collaboration over competition mindset. The people that want to drive the profession forward, that know that you can and should achieve balance. The financial planners actually should be the example to their clients of the benefits of financial planning in creating their ideal life. And so we've got this amazing community that has those people, where we're also doing crazy initiatives that you won't see anywhere else, of taking a lot of the challenges in the profession, and instead of doing more research around what's wrong, we're creating solutions around them. So for example, one of the things is, we know most people on stage all look the same. It's the male, pale, and stale. That's a challenge. And so we've created a speaker and influencer program that takes people that have little to no speaking experience, puts them through training with international speaking coaches, to then deliver a 10-minute TED-style talk at the largest global financial planning conference in the world, coming up on June 23rd to the 25th. And that's something we're going to run every year. And we're just going to have more and more people, because people want that opportunity to get on stage, or at least to learn those public speaking skills. Such as, one example of how we're kind of doing things differently and just bringing people together, regardless of what fee side you're on, where you're at in the profession. If you've got that collaborative over competition mindset, that's what it's all about.
Yeah. So you have really put your money where your mouth is on this, and said, hey, we need to have examples. We need to have people out there, and you've kind of pulled them together. You're pulling them together. And a lot of people I know are jumping on this, who are interested in this, who are going to be there and love this idea of this basically you creating the largest international, group of financial advisors that are going to be speaking together. I think it's phenomenal.
Yeah. Over 100.
Yeah. I don't know if there's a Guinness record on that, or if they even care about it, but you ought to be taking some detail. That's fantastic. I love this. But yeah, there are some great challenges in the profession. And I think you're right. It's always like the fee base versus fee only versus commission versus, what lane are you in? Instead of, like you said, the benefits of financial planning should be that financial advisors should be example to their clients. And I think this is where a lot of stress actually comes from, by being in the industry. Well, I'm a financial advisor. I'm literally in the middle. I have two houses. We've sold one. We purchased another. We're like right in the middle. And qualifying for a mortgage as a business owner is such a fun second job, and takes all your time, right? Speaking of time, but the issue is, like, the mortgage officer is like, well, you're a financial, advisor. I'm like, yeah, but there's this, I think this cognitive dissonance of knowing versus doing. And just because we're a financial advisor doesn't mean you're going to do everything correct. But I think we need to be paving that way, or at least putting that foot forward of trying and being okay. The other day I was talking to some advisors about having their own advisor. I mean, how many advisors have their own financial advisor? Not many, relatively few. But it's best practice. Like, it's up here. Yet they're out touting every single day the benefits of having a financial advisor. Like, it's just some of these things that we ought to be the example to others. I really love it. And obviously you and I both know, as we've talked about this and in the book, we need to be better examples of balance. And as we're trying to help our clients with that. So, with everything that you've been through and what you've learned personally with balance, coming to grips with your own definition and how that's really shaped your career, because I've seen it, like, it's shaping you. Your desire for it is driving you. And it's a crazy, train to be, behind, because I can see it moving full head, because you've got lots of energy, Kate, crazy in a good way, meaning like you're after it. I love it. And a lot of advisors are seeing it and they're jumping on board, but seeing all of that, like, what are 2 or 3 things that you could tell advisors in any stage, in any aspect, collaboration over competition here? What would be a couple of pieces of advice that you could tell them now if they're struggling with balance, like this is something that's helped you?
Yeah, one of the things, so my husband and I are very, very spontaneous. We will just up and buy houses on the other side of the country and move without notice. We'll get on airplanes to other countries. We sold everything we owned a few years ago to move to South America. And so we do a lot of things that people think are crazy, but everything that we've done, we always say, what do we want to look back on in 10 years and know that we did? And so even me leaving my last job, he's done a career change, all these big things seem so scary, but that's what drives us. And we don't want to look back and know that all we did was work all the time and that we didn't take adventures and do the things that fulfill us. And I think a lot of financial advisors and financial planners can look at their clients, kind of like I have, and kind of say, do you want to be them in 10 or 20 years? Sometimes yes, but sometimes, if you have clients that are workaholics and they're missing their family and they're not taking care of themselves, it's actually a really good driver to say, well, I should set the example for them. And that can be depending on how you are motivated. Some people are motivated by almost being held accountable by others. And that's another good way of doing it. And then being accountable to the profession. How can you show other people what an amazing profession this is? I always think if I was still outside the profession, if I looked in and saw all of these, exhausted people working 100 hours a week to meet their, sales minimums and cold calling, I'd be like, what? Who would ever want to join that? So we need to get the word out about how great of a profession this is, but we need to make sure that we're practicing what we preach.
So true. I'm just thinking back to the first day that I thought I was a financial advisor, and I'm sitting in a cubicle dialing from a then telephone book going, this is it, the glory days. I love it. But you're totally right.
Still do that. Maybe not a phone book, but people actually still do that.
That's the crazy part. I don't know why, because it lasted me a few months, but I had let's be honest about it. I had no warm market where I was, and I bought lists and went after business owners and just met with them at their work. And that's how I started. And I created a warm, network, but there is a better way. There are better ways. There's lots of communities out there like yours that I've noticed that are sprouting up because they want to give back. They want to help this industry, and they see that it's an industry that's really very young. It's very young, and we're just kind of melding together, several different areas of this industry to kind of form, financial planning and what that really is. So I appreciate what you're doing for the industry, what you're doing for other advisors. And, if people want to go and check out your community, if they want to be a part of that, or if they want to learn more about you, what's the best place to go? How do they find you?
Hop on innovatingadvice.com. Everything is on there.
Love it. Innovatingadvice.com. And I appreciate your time with us today, Kate. Thanks for being an example, and thanks for sharing with us your story of how you're achieving balance, and for being here.
Yeah. And Travis, thank you for spreading the message and for your book and your podcast. This is just such an important conversation that is not going to be any less important over time. So really, really appreciate what you're doing.